I will start recording. That's the one step I usually forget. Maybe since we have Michael and Jeff as new attendees, sort of dipping their toe in the water here, see what they think. We could all introduce ourselves. And Cindy, do you want to go first since you help oversee the larger rural group?
Sure. So my name's Cindy Perry. As Christian mentioned, I and Renee Umstead-Meyer are the two co-leads for the rural working group, and then this is a subgroup within that larger rural group, which is a subgroup within the larger PAPRN Plus. And I am faculty at Oregon Health and Science University School of Nursing, and my research focuses on promoting physical activity.
All right, thanks, Cindy. Mike Edwards, you want to roll?
Sure. This is Mike Edwards. I'm an associate professor at North Carolina State University in the College of Natural Resources, Department of Parks, Recreation, Tourism Management, and I'm part of a larger group here that really is focused on park-based physical activity, sport, participation, health promotion relative to that leisure time physical activity in those types of programs and settings. But my particular focus is in rural southern communities.
Very good. And then Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Michael Seymour. I'm a professor at Mississippi State University. I'm also a landscape architect, so I teach here in the Department of Landscape Architecture. I've been here about 12 years. I guess as far as research interests go, what's relevant is that I'm interested in active living, and in particular how the built environment can contribute to people's health.
All right, fantastic. And Jeff, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Christian.
Sure.
This is Jeff Whitfield. I'm an epidemiologist at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention here in Atlanta. I'm with the in the Chronic Disease Center, and I work with the Physical Activity and Health branch. And what got me interested in this group was I work with Tom Schmidt, and I've kind of listened in on many of the PAPRN calls, and we're starting to look at some rural and urban differences in walking prevalence at the national level. We're able to stratify some of our surveillance systems at that level now, and also have some interest in the kind of high-performing counties work that you guys are doing. So I'm eager to learn more, and thanks for letting me tag along.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Glad to have a couple additional members here. My name is Christian Abilzo. I guess I'm leading this little subgroup, and this is a topic of great interest for a while. Yeah, so I'm an assistant professor here in the School of Public Health at West Virginia University. I think Jeff and I crossed paths on some pedestrian crash epidemiology work, and so yeah, my focus is definitely trying to find the places that are in the rural areas that are active and why. So that's largely the big picture for this group. I think this has been born from a couple years of active living and going to that rural group, and instead of just complaining about why nobody talks about rural areas, we're trying to figure things out. So yeah, so this has been a fun group so far. And Michael and Jeff, just to bring you up to speed, we are essentially trying to find the areas that stick out county level. We've debated, county level, city, tract, all that other stuff. And because of limitations in the data, we went with county level physical activity guideline prevalence. And then Jeff, as you are probably well aware of, and Michael probably too, that once you start looking into rural physical activity prevalence data using BRFSS, you're going to run into small sample sizes, missing data, things like that. So what we did is we looked at a paper by Renee Dwyer, I think it was Renee Dwyer Lindgren out in Washington, doing a small area estimation. I can send that around again if we need to, but basically, estimated physical activity guideline prevalence for males and females at every county throughout the U.S. So that kind of filled in the gaps. Yes, it has limitations, but it's kind of what we have, unless, Jeff, now that you're on, I don't know if you know of any other sources. I mean, if you do, that might blow this whole thing up. But so we were trying to use that small area estimation data to find the areas that are A, most rural, and B, most active. So I don't know, Jeff, you have any comments about that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't know of anything off the top of my head that would provide more granular data. Are you using a combination of the two? So you have BRFSS data for some counties, but where you don't have it, you fill in with small area estimates?
I tell you what, as I was talking, I was trying to remember. I'll have to look back in the paper that was published on this and find that detail. It was Laura Dwyer Lindgren out in Washington. So, but in that paper, it has every county, I think. So let me go back. It's been a while since I've read that. So I can go back in and send it to you if you'd like.
Cool.
Okay, so that's what I'll do. I'll make sure you guys have that. Yeah, so we used that paper to get the county level physical activity guideline data, and we used percent rural population at the county level to basically look at the most, I think it was we split it by deciles, right, for rurality. I have to look back at my notes again. It's been a couple months since we talked. So, and then within the most rural decile, try to figure out which counties are then most active. So that's where we are. We have that information. I can show you, actually, let me share my screen real quick. Okay, you guys let me know when you see the PowerPoint.
I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So essentially by census, by the 4 census regions, and again, those have, everything has its imperfections, but looking at that, essentially we had 17 of the most, the counties that were deemed the most rural. And within those, here are the most active counties, and you can see on the left side female, on the right side male, physical activity guideline prevalence. I'll highlight the column for female, and then the confidence interval to the right. So you can see Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire in this one. And there's just to give you an idea of what seems to be coming out. Region 2 is massive. And then you can see female and male, a lot of Texas, North Carolina, and 1 or 2 in Georgia or Oklahoma, Virginia there. And this is the Appalachian region. So, Michael, you'll see, if we were to look at the least active, I think you'd see Appalachia in there a little bit more. You can see region 3, a lot of the west. This is where the physical activity guideline, the prevalence are generally higher, meaning.
Christian, do you want to talk at all about why we've got the regional approach to this rather than just looking at national?
Yeah, good point, Mike. Yeah, last time I think we started looking at it and we said, okay, this is what we got, basically, Washington, Colorado, and Wyoming, and Utah. And so we wanted to say, all right, obviously context matters, so let's start splitting it up a little more into the regions, just to see what's working in the different regions too, right? That's, from what I recall, that seemed to be what we did. Yep. Yeah, thank you for that, Mike, that reminder. Then we start heading up north. We got a lot of Nebraska and Michigan for the most active. And then I did do the least active too. We got some Pennsylvania. Then we start getting a lot of Appalachia. You can see Mississippi, Kentucky, West Virginia. And then in Region 3, we decided kind of to exclude Hawaii and Alaska just because if we think of doing on-the-ground data collection, qualitative, just the travel, logistics, and stuff would be tough unless we have somebody there. Yeah, then you can see least active out west. And then again up more toward the north. So that's where we are, and obviously that's just a quick run through. And kind kind of basically the next steps are to find, I think Megan from Renee's grad student, sent me a couple instruments that we could use, and now it's really trying to figure out exactly what we will do to collect data on the ground, collect more of the qualitative information. I tend to think of it, if we think ecological stuff, at the different levels, we're starting to, think about people, programs, policies, state and county level, local level, programming, things like that. So I think the key next step is to identify how we will go collect data, and where. Now I will, I'm talking a lot here. I'll open it up in just a second, but I just found out last week that I got a small bit of money from WVU for a quote unquote Big 12 scholars or fellows program. So it will allow me to go to Texas and work with Renee and her student or a couple of students, just since she's used a lot of the instruments before and she has a lot of good connections in Texas, test things out, do a pilot test in Texas and maybe a couple of those counties we saw pop up as most active. So that's where we stand. We haven't spoken in a couple of months. So on the last call, we talked about, trying to identify the counties, split it into regions. I'm going to bring this over, the minutes from last time, show you that. Started talking about maybe other data to pull in. So really, to be perfectly honest, I don't know if much progress has been made on my front. Well, I know not much progress has been made on my front about pulling other data in and narrowing in on the data collection tool on the ground, qualitative or policy collection work. We have the RALA, obviously. So I'm going to open it up and I will stop talking and see what everybody thinks about the direction and maybe suggestions for any next steps. I don't have any specific questions, but I'd be interested to hear, especially Michael and Jeff, as you're just jumping in here, any thoughts or suggestions, anything like that.
Hey, Christian, this is Jeff. Have you guys considered bringing in the built environment variables from the Smart Location database? Now, those are at the block group level, but you could kind of think of ways to aggregate them at the county level and see if any of those built environment features are predictive.
And so remind me, is that nationwide?
Yep, it's national data on selected built environment attributes, and it's freely available from the EPA, and it's at the block group level.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. That is one I'm not sure if I've used before. I'm looking it up real quick.
Okay. Yeah, and they've also just come out with a walkability index based on a few key variables from the Smart Location database. Mm-hmm. And there again, that walkability index is at the block group level, and it's designed to be at the block group level. I mean, obviously, the walkability is a hyperlocal phenomenon, so it needs to be at a fairly small geography. But again, there could be, I think there could be a case for trying to aggregate up or create some summary score at the county level for like the proportion of block groups that are highly walkable or something along those lines. But it's something you could do without any additional cost.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Jeff. Mike, you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think that'd be really interesting to try to aggregate that.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. This is Cindy. I wonder, I missed the last call, so it seems a huge undertaking to try to go to all of the least in most counties that you had on the PowerPoint and use those tools. I mean, I know I use the RALA, and there's a big training. I mean, there's quite a bit of time that needs to be devoted to training before you use it. That's a time-intensive tool.
Yeah.
So besides the training, just actually doing it. So since we don't have really funds to cover going to all these places, we might consider looking at data sets like they just mentioned, or if there's others that we know of that would help us, and maybe just go to a few representative counties to collect on the ground data.
Okay.
We've also had a little bit of experience at our branch doing a city and town level policy research. So we call it the CBOS study, and the results are still kind of being trickled out. But it's basically you find a point person in each one of those jurisdictions and ask about the presence or absence of certain policies or programs. And I think we have some methods papers that we can share. I'll need to. I haven't been too involved with it. I know of its existence, but I haven't really worked with it personally. So I can, if you're interested, I can find out some more information and pass it on to the group.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
CBOS, huh?
CBOS, yeah. CB, community. Well, yeah. I'll have to get back to you on the acronym. We have too many of those around here. So.
Yeah, that makes me think of Seabass from I think Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. That's
Make sure that Dumb and Dumber reference gets in the minutes there.
Absolutely. It's being recorded, so. Anyway, okay, so looking at the smart data. Yeah, thanks for those additional sources of data, Jeff. Yeah, and Cindy, I think the RALA, you've used it, is that right?
Yeah, I did. I used it. I didn't do countywide. I did it in 4 rural communities in central Washington. I used to be up at University of Washington, and then I've been at OHSU for 4 years. So I still do some of my research up in Washington State. So, but we trained local people, community partners in that tool. It just took a lot of training, and then getting inter-rater reliability to do. There's different parts of it. So there is one part that's similar to what Jeff was describing, where you talk to someone about what programs, policies are in place. I mean, in that part, you can just call people, and that's not as time intensive. It was the part that was time intensive was doing the assessment at the, which I'm trying to remember now, I believe it was half-mile segments of the street for walkability.
Right.
That's what took the time.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there's this walkability index, a score that Jeff was also describing, and maybe that could be used potentially instead, and we could use the other part of the RALA, which is divided into 3 parts.
Yeah, that's Cindy, that's what we talked about actually at the last call, was we were only going to take one specific component of the RALA, which was the community level measure, and that was the only piece we were going to use.
Okay, yeah.
For that exact reason.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, okay. So then, yes, then that makes sense. And you could just call all the different counties. You wouldn't have to actually go there in person. Yeah. Okay. I misunderstood when you said on the ground. I just envisioned traveling there.
Yeah. I wanted to hear more of your perspective on it, though, Cindy. That's good. And it seems like we're not getting just the way this thing feels. I don't know if we're getting down to street segment kind of stuff. We're trying to back up and say, well, maybe what we've been told to look for isn't, from the more urban literature is really not what we need to look for in rural areas. And I'm getting more and more convinced of it as I travel around and get to different rural areas.
And Christian, theoretically, going back to our call to action paper, we kind of mentioned that that the unit of analysis in the rural community may look different than in an urban setting. Yeah,
absolutely. So essentially, I think it was on me still to get the data collection, methods or tools together, and largely I'm just going to go. When I go to visit with Renee, it's going to be very exploratory. It's just talk to one person, maybe that'll lead you to another. It's going to be a lot of snowball, just on the ground activity, just to see what's going on in the rural areas and what it looks like. Find the key people, find the key places, whatever it might look like. So I don't want to be too scripted in methodology or tools or anything like that. So, yeah, but then I think, so the purpose of those, pilot test it, and then maybe I'll do some more, I'll think about it and then do some more in West Virginia with some, folks I know around here, and maybe even in Western Maryland. And then it's just take that idea and see if we can scale it up, and then bring in a bunch more people. And, all of you guys that have been helpful with this, maybe we can, launch a bunch of foot soldiers across the country, and, after we try to get some money and everything. So that's the plan, at least. So I'm trying to think of other activities right now. So essentially it feels like it's really on me at this point to get the methods. Everybody agree with that? Silence is consent. So whenever anybody on a conference call or webinar says, yeah, it's on me to do that, you just kind of let them go, right? But the other, I don't know, and Michael, I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot real quick. Can you think of any other measures from an environmental perspective, from landscape architecture world, that might come into play here? Just think about built environment measures.
Not off the top of my head, but I could dig a little bit, see if I could find something.
Yeah, just seeing if you've come across anything that's been useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some tools for like measuring walkability and that kind of thing. I don't know that they'd be incredibly useful in this situation.
Right. Or even, yeah, and again, it has to be national and county level. I wonder, well, the green space stuff is still, I mean, we could have massive, like in West Virginia, I'm thinking we have county covered in green space, but it's mountains and it's mined and all this other, it's industrial. So even though it's green space, quote unquote, probably. Okay. I think the last, anybody else have anything thinking about methods and on the ground, probably as much qualitative as anything else kind of work?
Well, this is Cindy. I'll just add that I do have a research intern working with me this year. So if you wanted to test some tools, we could do that. It would be in Oregon, though, which is not on any of the lists, but just to test using them in rural areas. We could certainly do that. I don't see Oregon on any of these lists, but if you wanted to pilot test it, since I have this intern for the academic year.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking again. You can see it probably. Oregon was not on the most or least. Yeah.
Yeah, I see San Juan County out in Washington State. Those are, islands out there.
Right. I'll paddle
San Juan Islands. They're very beautiful.
I'll paddle out. Don't worry. I'll paddle with the whales. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for offering that up, Cindy. So I'm going to put it on. I'm putting it on my own plate to get the methods tightened up and everything, and I still have to finalize when I'm going to Texas to meet with Renee, and we have a list of the other counties we'll go to in a short amount of time with a little bit of money. So it'll be interesting. And then are we still? I think we were in agreement. If we can scale this up, we'll go with the most and least active and compare kind of differences, right? As a design, that seems better.
Yeah, that was my understanding.
Yep. Okay. All right. And then the next, I think, final topic I'd like to get to today is active living abstracts. And then I will turn, Cindy and Mike, since you guys have been on these calls for the longest length of time. What do you two think about an abstract or abstracts to submit?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what might be the best, approach to a useful. I think that we should try something. I think there should be some type of either process, sort of the process we've gone through in discussing this, and kind of here's the results relative to the most active, least active, et cetera. But I'm trying to figure out what the kind of the punchline, the real sort of aha information might be that would be of use in that setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very similar to what I'm struggling with. Unless, I mean, obviously, PAPRN wants to show the work they've done, right, and the ongoing work. So I can see that it's important from that perspective. The only other one I was thinking of is presenting, like you said, Mike, that most least active, how we've gotten to there, and then what the data collection will be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, by then I will have pilot tested. I'll have visited Renee.
Right.
Pilot tested, so maybe some preliminary evidence of what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I could see some utility in that. I think that might be, if we can, again, we're not talking about a whole lot of words, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you could talk about the process we went to get to identifying the counties, least and most, and talk about potential tools or databases we're also going to combine with to look at the context. It seems reasonable.
Yeah.
But when is it due?
24th, 25th of August. I mean, I could put something together fairly. It is very few words, so I could put something together. I'm wondering, does anybody know if PAPRN's doing a series of presentations or posters? What are they planning? Do you know, Cindy?
I don't know. My thinking is they'll do something similar to what they did this year, where they'll have some sort of presence. I'm trying to think I wasn't at the meeting this year, so I don't remember, but they had some general Were you at the meeting?
Yeah, they had posters, basically.
Oh, that's right. We put together posters.
Yeah, I've got to assume they had a sprinkling of presentations, too.
Yeah, so that's right. They did ask us to put together a poster about the rural group. But otherwise, probably different subgroups like us maybe submitted an abstract. I don't really recall.
Yeah.
This year it's in a different location, isn't it? Or next year?
It's in Banff. Beautiful Banff, Canada.
In the middle of winter.
It's going to be beautiful. Come on, Mike. Just mix it up.
Well, we can get there.
I want to see Jim freezing. I want to see him get out of the San Diego comfort zone. Okay, so how about this? I will put together I'll look back through the RALA, the community level measures. I'll take a look at, Jeff, can I ask you very quickly here, the SMART data, the smart growth data from EPA?
Yeah.
Do you have a very quick, just data, I don't know, code book almost, or a data book?
Yep, sure do.
Do you mind sending that, or posting the link maybe in the chat or something? Or just email it to me, that's fine.
Yep, will do.
Awesome, thank you. And we can talk more about that. And then also, Jeff, I think you said you'd send out what you could find about the CBOS. And I'll look at the RALA and anything. You guys see anything else going on? Anything, Mike, thinking of your work, anything about schools and any other data we could pull in, and other parks variables that maybe we're not getting? I know I can get from, the environmental public health tracking stuff, the percent that have access, within a half mile from a park, and then same thing within 5 to 9 within a half mile of school or whatever. So.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be about the best we can do.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, if we pick the counties, there may be some state level type data that we could look into that might be comparable across states. But
yeah.
wait and see.
And then I'm not trying to get too complicated with, statistical design or anything, or are these just descriptor variables? Okay, we picked the counties just based on the one small area estimation, but here are some of the built environment measures and compare across. I don't know. That seems to be that might be a nice use of data, as those are kind of I guess we would propose the independent variables that predict the dependent variable of physical activity guidelines. So, or at least just to describe the counties a little bit. I don't know. So we'll have to think about that a little bit more in the future maybe, but it'd be good to just pull more data in. Okay, so I'll put together ALR abstract, and send that around and just see who wants to be on it. Obviously, everybody who's been in on the calls is welcome. And I think, Jeff, you were interested in the small area estimation paper, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So, and then I'm going to work on the methods, start to write those up a little bit. That'll be just pushing, toward the ALR abstract will help on that front. So I will just open it up. I see Jeff, you emailed me. Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order?
No.
Michael or Jeff, any first-time caller comments, questions?
Long-time listener, first-time caller?
Long-time listener. That was my opening line at ALR when my first presentation in 10 years.
No, nothing else from me right now. I'm going to read the paper, and if I have any comments on it, I'll shoot it back to you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Cool.
No, I think I'm mostly absorbing right now. I mean, I'm interested in how the sort of site visit portion would go, or if you're talking about not doing that. But I don't know. I mean, maybe there could be some other ways that you could investigate conditions on the ground that wouldn't necessitate you going there.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah.
I mean, Google Earth would be the most obvious, just as some way of sort of exploring streetscape or those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
a good idea.
Yeah.
Again, I'll just mention that I do have the intern available. If you needed some help as you're getting things together, you can let me know.
Yeah, cool. What? And then we just have to figure out if it fits that person's strengths, basically. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well then, I knew this call would be a little light, just because I think a lot of folks are either traveling or on vacation or whatever. So I think we'll try to schedule something. I think before the August 25th or whatever deadline for ALR, we'll be sending abstracts or the abstract around, and maybe that'll be a prompt to set up a September call. So we'll get in the old doodle again. Okay, very good. Anything else for the good of the order, troops?
Nope.
Hearing nothing?
No.
Okay, well, enjoy the last few weeks of the summer before school starts again and all that good stuff.
All right, man. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.